Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is as strong as death. Jealousy is fierce as the grave. Its flashes are the flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. A pleasant day to all our viewers. We are Group 6.4, and we will be presenting Marriage as a Sacrament. Here is a short outline of the topics we will be discussing: an introduction to marriage, understanding of marriage as a sacrament throughout time, sacramental celebration of marriage, life after marriage, and finally, our conclusion. First, what are sacraments? Basically, they are sacred rites that symbolize and confer the grace of God. So, what about marriage as a sacrament? Marriage becomes a sacrament through the mutual self giving and acceptance of the couple, which in turn reflects the love of God to the people around the couple. They become a sacrament, reminding the people of the presence of Christ, who instituted the sacrament of marriage.
Now let us discuss how marriage as a sacrament is understood throughout time. In the Bible, marriage traces back into the creation of Adam and Eve, wherein Eve was created for Adam from him. Eve symbolizes the help of God for Adam, due to his loneliness. For a marriage to be accepted, there are requirements that should be met. First, marriage needs consent from both man and woman, and if only one should agree to the marriage should not continue. Marriage cannot also be forced upon two people by others, which means that marriages such as fixed marriage should be discouraged by the church. Next, marriage is considered a covenant and not a contract, which means that it should be everlasting. In here, we observe unity and indissolubility, wherein the togetherness of man and woman is observed. According to the Gospel of Matthew, divorce and remarriage is also considered as adultery, which means that fidelity or faithfulness should be practiced at all times. Lastly, both man and woman should know that the main goal of marriage is to procreate, which means that it is doing God's mission of spreading the faith in their children into the next generations. In this principle, contraception and abortion is considered a sin. Now let us dive into the sacramental celebration of marriage, which usually starts when both man and woman declare their marriage in front of God and His people. This is further supported by the appearance of Jesus Christ at the wedding at Cana, which symbolizes His presence in every marriage. Now, there are three factors that contribute to marriage being as a sacrament. And the first are the words of the sacrament, which is the exchange of vows between man and woman, wherein they both agree to being married to each other. This is usually done by saying the phrase, I do. Next is the form of the sacrament, wherein marriages should be performed in front of the altar, in front of God. And marriage performed in other places, other than the altar, is discouraged by the church. Lastly, the sacrament of marriage should be considered completed through sexual intercourse, wherein the main purpose of marriage, procreation, is met. This is commonly done through honeymoons, which is usually done after weddings.
Remember that we have two essential things when we talk about marriage as a sacrament. First is the sacramental celebration of marriage, which is discussed a while ago, and the second one is this one, which is life after marriage. So couples preparing for marriage are frequently reminded that marriage is a process, not a state, a beginning, not an end, a threshold, not a goal. Your marriage certificate is a learner's permit, not a diploma. We must be clear about the realism of what is affirmed of marriage as a sacrament. Marriage is not just a celebration that points to, witnesses to Christ's love. Rather, Christ really gives himself to the married couple in and through their ongoing mutual self-giving love. So Christ, the primordial sacrament, is highly associated with marriage, as with the other ritual sacraments. He both grounds and provides the basis for Christian marriage and is himself the fullest exemplification of the spiritual reality symbolized. So Christian marriage and family life are said to constitute the church in miniature, which is the domestic church and also known as the family. So God's perfect covenant love of his people. Jesus himself is God's covenant in person. The lover, just as we saw, he is also the baptized one, the confirmed one, the present one, the reconciler, the healer, and of course, the priest. So what we just heard are the seven sacraments, and Jesus represents all of those. So what does the church do for the family? So today, many Filipino Catholics are challenged to defend the church's action regarding family life. Pope John Paul II answered by explaining how the church as mother gives birth to, educates, and builds up the Christian family by exercising its saving mission for the family. So he develops the church's bond with the family according to the same threefold image, which is priestly, kingly, and prophetic. It also involves doctrine, worship, and morals. So an example of what the church does for the family is by celebrating the sacraments, the church enriches and strengthens the Christian family with the grace of Christ for its sanctification to the glory of the Father. So what is the mission of the family? So the Christian family shares in the saving mission of the church, since the married couples not only receive the love of Christ and become a saved community, but they are also called upon to communicate Christ's love to their brethren, thus becoming a saving community. The family should be the agent of unity, the agent of life, the agent for social development, and the agent of evangelization.
As the understanding of marriage in the contemporary world continues to evolve and further develop with social anthropology, through the concept of marriage as a sacrament, understanding the sacred scriptures is still necessary. With the sacrament of marriage, the understanding of marriage in the sacred scriptures should always be seen in the lens of source and foundation. Its understanding in the sacred scriptures as the core must always be recognized that marriage is an exclusive and permanent covenant in a unity with one another and with God. Today, for a united and loving body to know and live by the theological understanding of marriage, we deem that it guides them to a united and conjugal love. With this, we still see it as necessary as it centers on fidelity, where the sacramental gift of marriage is perceived with the loving communion and bond of the covenant of spouses. As Tomasians, we can impart this knowledge to others as we can help others believe that we can still create safe spaces for people, where we may still remain vulnerable for others, for intimacy and compassion in learning.